All right, let's dive right back into it. Now that we have our base tables designed, let's just try to get this data into HubSpot. In the previous episodes, we opened up a HubSpot instance, set up, added some basic settings here like company creation, some fields, and now it's time to get actually started. So in our developer account, there's nobody here, no contacts, no companies, and what we want to do is actually pipe some data out of Airtable into HubSpot. For this stack, we've selected Hightouch, so let's just head on over to hightouch.io and create a free account. Now, with them, it's pretty good that we can have a sensible free tier. You can select up to one destination for free, and most importantly, they have Airtable as a source, which is exactly what we need. Let's just double check. Great. Right, so sign up for free. Same story as last time. Let's just get through this as quick as possible. And we have a fresh Hightouch instance. So if you want, please follow along this welcome tutorial. It's really good. We're just gonna kind of go do a quick version of this. So the idea of a reverse ETL is quite simple. We essentially have a table somewhere, such as Airtable, a database, and some data in there, and we want to throw it back into our SaaS applications, such as HubSpot. Cool. So in order to connect Airtable to Hightouch, we actually need to go grab our API key from Airtable. It's quite easy to do. All we have to go is into our settings page. So if you click here on your account, and you have the API key here. Now, before you get any ideas, I'm going to delete the key right after this episode. And if at any point in time you accidentally leak your API key in any setting, you should regenerate it and make sure that it's completely secure, because this here is going to allow anybody to work with our Airtable instance. So be careful. Okay, and all we have to do is copy paste the API key, test the connection, continue on. Let's call this our data warehouse source of truth. Great. We have created our first source. Let's create our destination. Okay, before we can actually create a destination, we need to create a Hightouch model. It simply put that means that we need to select what data we want to send where. Now, with Airtable, let's select our episode 3 setup and the actual table we want to select from. So let's start easy. Let's talk about people. We want to sync people over. Great. Test the connection. And as you can see, Ricky boy over here has made it successfully over to Hightouch. What do we call this? Data model is a CRM people. And the primary key, let's just use record ID as it suggests. This is Airtable's internal ID that it generates that you have no access to. It is more than enough. Okay. All right. We have created our model, and lastly, let's create our sync. Where do we want to go? Let's see. In fact, let me delete this completely. All right, last step is to create the destination. There's no surprise here. We are going to send our data into HubSpot. Clickety-click, private app token. Now, let's just go the easy route. For this, make sure you have enough rights to actually do this operation. If you're unsure, check with your HubSpot admin. If you, for whatever reason, have super admin rights, easy peasy. Select account, It's going to ask you some questions. Well, it's going to tell you exactly what it's going to use in order to sync. Click Connect App down there, and we are good to go. Okie dokie. So everything seems to be good. This destination is called, just CRM HubSpot. As far as I can tell, it doesn't really matter what you call these in the sense of Hightouch, but it's always good to keep a naming convention, something that is easily understandable. Okay, last step of the tutorial, we need to create the actual sync. So HubSpot is our destination. We want to upsert, and really the difference here is that upserting means if the record is not found, it will be created. Whereas update will not create anything new, it just updates what it finds. We want to specifically do upserts here because we're pushing new data into HubSpot. Let's select our column. How should the records be queried? Okay, so this is our simple identity resolution piece. How does Hightouch know what to look for in HubSpot? Back in our table here, we decided that email is going to be our unique identifier for these things. So let's just go ahead and do the same thing here. Email and email. See, they already recommended to begin with. Okay, what do we want to pipe over? So probably let's just start with our first name, our last name, and I think we had a website column there. So, or did we not? I guess it doesn't see it yet because there are no values. Let's do it. Refresh this here. Here we go, website, great. The website field is very important because it's going to partially decide how these contacts get associated to companies. We could do it. We could do the association mapping here ourselves, but for now, let's just trust HubSpot's default system. Maybe at some point we'll realize it's not enough for us and we'll have to come back to this. But for now, let's just keep it simple. And last but not least, how would you like to handle records leaving the source? Let's just do nothing for now. That can get quite tricky. Finalize your settings. Yeah, let's just sync this every 50 minutes for now. I think that's more than enough. Now, before we finish, let's just double check here. Absolutely no contacts. We have no companies. Nothing going on here. Easy. Pray to whoever. Pray that this works now. Okay. No runs. Let's just manually trigger a run. Great. So Ricky over here once again has been successfully digested and sent over. This is a good sign. And if we now head over to our contact section, we should see Ricky Makara. Well done, man. You made it. And that is how simple it is to set up a reverse ETL and send it to HubSpot. Now, in case you didn't notice, there are two things that happened here. One, we sent over a contact called Ricky Makara, but then the second piece that has happened is that we have a company that was created, and that particular email was associated to it. So this is purely due to the setting to us deciding to use HubSpot's default identity resolution. So yeah, I think this is potentially a good place to talk about HubSpot's identity resolution and how it works. So what you need to understand is that HubSpot will first look at your domain, so your email domain, and it will use that to define, to figure out whether it should create a company or not. HubSpot itself maintains a list of free mail providers that it checks against. So, for example, if I added rickymacara@gmail.com and no website property, it would create no company. However, the secondary piece that it uses is the website property we've set up here. So let me just show you a quick example here. And if we add another one, say Richard, and let's say here we then said reconfigured.io. Head over to Hightouch. We can rerun our syncs whenever we need to. See what happens. Okay, so as you can see, rickymac@gmail.com managed to actually fly over to HubSpot, and its primary company is reconfigured. Crazy. Even though we didn't have any sort of identifier within the actual email, HubSpot was able to figure out that this is the company it belongs to. And the only reason for that is that we synced over a website field. So if we look over here in the contact properties, see, it is the same value that we are syncing over from Airtable to HubSpot. And this is what defined the company identity. So a few things to note here. You don't actually have to worry about parsing the domain yourself. It will do that for you. It will still retain a record of it as a URL, which is not great for when you have to export data, but in the background, it will actually realize what is a domain, what is not. Lastly, just a note on related domains. Unfortunately, it does not quite understand to map together two different URLs that are actually the same company. It will end up creating two companies. So let's just illustrate that as well. We have Richard Macara at Paddle here, and then Paddle, one of Paddle's related domains is usepaddle.com. So let's see, usepaddle.com. Great. And then Ricky and Rick. So again, no website field, or actually, this is just for the sake of the for the sake of this exercise. Let's say they are both having paddle.com as the website. Let's see what happens. We run the sync. Okay, two operations. Paddle people have been synced over. Right. Now let's have a look what's happened here. So both companies here, both people have made it successfully over to to HubSpot, and both have a different primary company, unfortunately. It's both the same logo, so they clearly have a record that these two are like they kind of like related, but unfortunately HubSpot by default will create two separate companies, even though we explicitly specified that the website for both of these is exactly the same. No can do.